From the GRAYMAN briefing, this is a summary of recent developments regarding the Second Amendment, cybersecurity, protests, supply chain disruptions, national security, law and order, free speech, censorship, government oversight, and more. Now, the latest from GRAYMANbriefing.com. Here's this week's Sword, read out by Super Essie.
This week, the Biden administration bans common appliances used in 40% of households. Social media giant ends fact-checking. Civil unrest update on nationwide protest. FBI issues PSA warning of copycat NOLA terrorism. Federal CCP reciprocity bill, that's concealed carry permit, has been introduced. Ohio bill allows for law enforcement to charge for the public release of body cam footage. SCOTUS considers 3 major 2A cases, and an update on those California fires to include discussion on arson, looting, and government failures. Let's begin today with government oversight and that water heater ban. The Biden administration has implemented new energy efficiency standards targeting certain natural gas-fired water heaters, particularly non-condensing tankless models. These regulations, set to take effect in 2029, aim to reduce carbon dioxide emissions by requiring higher efficiency levels that only condensing models can meet. The Department of Energy published the measure on December 26th under the Energy Policy and Conservation Act. Compliance will be required by December 2029 with an effective start date of March 2025. The DOE projects that the new standards will save consumers around $11 billion annually in energy and water costs, totaling about $198 billion over 3 years. They also estimate a reduction in 501 million tons of emissions. However, the upfront cost to comply with the new standards is going to cost households $450 each. And of course, this is a concern for low-income households and those in off-grid communities. Critics highlight that consumers who previously relied on affordable non-condensing models will now face limited options. Also, manufacturers are expected to bear costs due to the equipment that they already possess now being obsolete, potentially increasing prices for compliant products. So manufacturers now have all this waste, all this equipment that can't be used anymore to make these the 40% that's already in use. So those costs are expected to be passed on to the new models, meaning it'll be more than $450 per household, and the whole claim about it saving $198 million or billion dollars over 30 years looks to be irrelevant. Moving on, in Ohio, the governor has signed into law House Bill 315. It permits law enforcement agencies to charge fees for public access to police video footage. This is things like body cam, dash cam, and surveillance recordings. Agencies may now impose, they don't have to, it's up to them, but they can now impose fees of up to $75 an hour or a maximum of $750 per request to cover the cost of video preparation, such as redactions. Keep in mind, these body cam videos, it's not just of the interaction. There's stuff that leads up to it prior to private conversations, video footage inside a household that has children. You obviously have to redact that stuff. And right now, police officers who should be out on the street patrolling are having to sit in front of a desk and having to learn how to do this stuff so they can release these videos. So all in all, it's not going to interfere with the release, and it's not requiring that this payment be made. It just allows maybe smaller agencies who don't have the larger staffing or budget to have individual people assigned to do this video redaction. It'll allow them to charge, and it'll most likely be used in situations where private entities that are for profit are trying to get these videos to release on social media or something. So it sounds bad at first, but not really that big of a deal. Moving on now into the Second Amendment. The U.S. Supreme Court is evaluating 3 pivotal Second Amendment cases. So first off, Maryland's ban on what they call assault weapons, Rhode Island's restrictions on magazine capacities, and the standards for preliminary injunctions protecting gun right cases. The justice's decision on whether to hear these cases could set a significant precedent. A final determination is expected, I believe, on January 17th. Now, the Constitutional Concealed Carry Reciprocity Act has been reintroduced into Congress. The legislation will mandate that national that everyone nationwide recognize concealed carry permits, allowing for lawful carriers to exercise their rights across state lines. The bill seeks to create a uniform standard for concealed carry laws nationwide and is currently under review in the House Judiciary Committee. Now let's move into civil unrest. Protests and unrest continue nationwide, driven by various causes. So in Washington, D.C., a transgender activist was arrested for assaulting a U.S. House representative at the Rayburn office building. Meanwhile, pro-Palestinian activists in New York City distributed fraudulent QR codes or stickers designed to mislead users into accessing graphic anti-Israel propaganda and pictures of mutilated children. These stickers were disguised as things like get a free Starbucks drink or a free Happy Meal, and they were posted at Starbucks, at McDonald's, and various places. Additionally, professors at NYU blocked students from accessing the library during finals in a protest to support Palestine. In Philadelphia, activists opposed to a proposed arena in Chinatown conducted a sit-in at the city council chambers. 40-plus people were arrested. Nationwide, pro-Palestinians and far-left groups have organized protests targeting Trump's presidency and various other social issues, with events occurring in cities such as Charlotte, Seattle, Chicago, Boston, etc. Looting has been reported in Southern California following that wildfire destruction, leading to over 20 arrests. We're going to do an update on the California fires later on in this episode, and also you're going to hear more about it in the next episode, the next broadcast. Following that fatal subway attack in New York City on stationary F train, the Guardian Angels have resumed unarmed patrols in the city's transit system. Their efforts, according to them, aim to increase safety amid ongoing concerns about violent crime. However, obviously, public opinion on their presence remains divided. In New York City, also on January 1st, over 3,000 protesters marched, chanting "Globalize the Intifada." The demonstration coincided with an ISIS-inspired vehicle attack, obviously in Los Angeles. It was right after that. In Tennessee, a Rhodes College investigation revealed that racist messages found on campus were fabricated by an individual seeking to discredit Trump supporters. The perpetrator admitted responsibility, and legal measures are now being pursued. All right, so let's back up real quick. A second ago, I touched on the anti-Trump protest. I'm going to read off directly here from the GRAYMAN briefing just to kind of give you a little bit more details. So, in Durham and Charlotte, North Carolina, in Tukwila and Seattle, Washington, in Philadelphia, PA, Chicago, Illinois, San Francisco, LA, Sacramento, Boston, Cincinnati, Dayton, and so many other places, pro-Palestinians and anti-Trump activists, including Antifa, the Palestinian Youth Network, and the Party for Socialism and Liberation. They are all organizing these rallies that's supposed to take, some of them already taken place on the 11th and 12th. The rest of them will be on the 20th, the day of the inauguration. They're opposing a Trump presidency and calling for supporters to, quote, defeat Trump's extreme right billionaire agenda. They call on others to, quote, take to the streets while meeting outside various public libraries, city halls, and event centers across the nation. Each location focuses on various points of contention, so it depends on where they're at, whatever's the hotter topic, whether it be immigration, trans agendas, climate change. It's all aimed at attracting the most disruptions and unrest. While we've listed some protest locations, it appears that there is a rally in every state, with many having multiple cities within each state. Separately, in D.C., a man carrying a machete and multiple knives was stopped by Capitol Police, and separately, a man set fire to a vehicle amid Trump's visit with U.S. senators there. So I just wanted to kind of read through that one. All these civil unrest briefs I'm giving you, I'm just kind of paraphrasing or just kind of glancing over. But if you're interested in any of them, and obviously the sources, the videos of them happening, or postings about them being planned and scheduled, definitely go over to the GRAYMANbriefing.com and read more about this. Okay, now we're going to shift into the California fires, and I am again just going to kind of read some of the updates. So the initial posts on the California fires were from the previous week. I think we may have already mentioned them in the last broadcast. So I'm just going to read word for word a couple of the latest updates. Authorities continue to advise that none of the wildfires are suspected to be arson. Citizens in Woodland Hills, however, observed a man attempting to, quote, light a fire. He was connected to the Kenneth fire. It appears the civilians located, surrounded, and detained using zip ties and rope. He was arrested less than 30 minutes after the Kenneth fire broke out, and police announced he was a suspect in the fire. I believe later there was an update given that he wasn't charged with arson and he was released. Also, post about him being an illegal immigrant, though that's not listed here on the briefing. I don't know if it's been confirmed or not. This stuff it's back and forth. It's like they're fighting on some of this information getting out, and then there's other information like, yeah, let's go ahead and send it out. Let me read you this little section here in the debrief. So, terrorist organizations, including Al Qaeda and ISIS, have promoted arson as a low-cost tactic to cause economic damage and spread fear, with Al Qaeda's Inspire magazine providing detailed instructions for initiating wildfires, and ISIS's Al Hayat Media Center endorsing arson in a 2020 video showcasing California wildfires. U.S. intelligence agencies, including the FBI and DHS, have highlighted the threat of terrorist-initiated wildfires in previous reports, emphasizing the accessibility of materials and the minimal expertise required for such attacks, particularly in wildfire-prone areas. While there is no evidence, keep in mind, no evidence of coordinated campaigns, the continued promotion of arson and terrorist propaganda underscores the need for vigilance, enhanced detection, and preventative measures. Please note, we are not assessing that the California wildfires are connected to terrorism, but this is something you should be aware of at least. Another update reads, a curfew is now in effect in LA from 6 to 6, dawn to dusk. 20 plus looters, I believe is up to 40 now, but that'll be in a later update. They've been arrested. Claims that the initial fire was started by an arsonist with a gasoline canister. It remains unconfirmed. The Palisades fire, the Eaton fire, all of them, Hearst, Lydia. As of, I believe it was the 12th or 13th, there was 27,000 acres burned and 10,000 plus houses destroyed. 150,000 people were under evacuation orders at one time. I think that was on the 13th, early on the 13th. Concerns over insurance claims, failures of emergency alert systems. Basically, their alert system sends out erroneous messages, and then they have to send another message saying, sorry, we didn't mean to send that one. Whole bunch of stuff going on with the EAS system there. Also, the lack of ability to pump waters into affected areas, failed hydrants, budget cuts to fire services. All this stuff remains under scrutiny, investigation. It's talked about a lot on social media, not so much mainstream. The GRAYMAN briefing is going to keep following the fire stuff and give you more updates. All right, so getting back on track, a recent, as of November 2024, UK study has warned against long-term use of acetaminophen, claiming it can cause increased risk of peptic ulcers, heart failure, hypertension, and chronic kidney disease. The research indicates that regular use of the pain reliever is associated with increased risks of several serious health complications, including a 36% higher risk of gastrointestinal bleeding. So the study was for those age 65 and up, but it applies to pretty much everyone. This isn't new information, but it's a new study that kind of cements the whole concept to possibly avoid it if you can. Now shifting into censorship. Facebook and Instagram's Meta has announced that it is ending its third-party fact-checking program. Instead, the company plans to implement community note systems similar to those used by X, formerly Twitter. Zuckerberg stated that they are going, this is a quote, going to get rid of fact-checkers and replace them with community notes in order to restore free expression. Also, they said they've gone too far by censoring citizens in the past. Meta also said they had been, quote, too restrictive and not allowing enough discourse around sensitive topics like immigration, trans issues, and gender. We want to make sure that discourse can happen freely on the platform without fear of censorship, end quote. This comes after multiple meetings between Trump and Zuckerberg, a donation to Trump from Meta, and the announcement that Dana White, who is a Trump ally and UFC president, would be added to the board. Moving now into national security. The FBI and DHS issued a PSA following that ISIS-inspired vehicle attack in New Orleans. Officials warn of potential copycat incidents, emphasizing risk to crowded public venues, law enforcement, and military personnel. Also, they warn that improvised explosive devices may be used in conjunction with these copycat attacks. That's all for this week. Thanks for listening, and as always, remain aware, be vigilant, and stay safe.
Get unredacted real-time briefings sent via email and through the Telegram and Signal apps by joining the GRAYMAN briefing.